concerns over the potential misuse of Elon Musk's Grok AI chatbot. Britain will enforce a law this week making creation of non-consensual intimate images illegal. It's also investigating X, close on the heels of Malaysia and Indonesia banning Grok. And for more insight on the debate surrounding Grok, we are joined by Riana Pfefferkorn. She's a policy fellow at the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI. Thank you so much for joining us, Riana. Firstly, could you put this into perspective for us? Just how big a problem are we looking at here, and what kind of real-world harm does this cause, especially for women and children?
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, it seems like the volume has reduced in recent days after X put a control in place to restrict the image and video editing generation feature only to paid subscribers. Now, that basically means that these companies are now monetizing the abusive imagery that they are enabling Grok to generate. With that said, a lot of the imagery, once it is created, the harm is already done. A lot of these images are appearing in the feeds on X of the users whose pictures are being edited. And so the abuse is appearing right in their timelines, which exposes them to humiliation, to abuse. And from the research that I've done, people who have been the victims of AI-modified sexual imagery of themselves, they are often afraid that the images are going to follow them around throughout their lives, and that's what might come up when somebody searches their name in connection with, say, a job application or an application for university.
So what would you say is about Grok that's made it so vulnerable to this kind of misuse? And where did XAI get this wrong? Because Mr. Musk is blaming users rather than the tool for illegal content.
There's been a long-standing issue where so-called nudify or undress apps have existed online for a number of years at this point. But what I think makes this situation different is that here we have an AI image generation tool that's integrated directly into one of the most popular social media platforms on the planet. And so rather than having to know that these sort of seedy underbelly of the internet nudify apps exist and affirmatively seek them out and use them and then turn the nudified image onto some other channel, maybe Snapchat or Telegram. Instead, everything is just right there as a one-stop shop within X.
And Riana, apart from limiting access to this function, which you say presents its own set of problems, what more enforceable technical mitigations can be put in force to show that X is actually making better effort to protect users, like watermarking or face verification? And can these potentially prevent misuse at scale?
It's a great question what exactly the mitigations are and the guardrails are that X has built in or that Grok has built in so far. I don't have any personal insight into what exactly they're doing. And one thing that I've written about is how hard it is to impose safeguards on a model because they can be removed, sometimes even inadvertently, or by a malicious user. Plus, even testing a model to try and determine its capacity to generate illegal content exposes AI companies to legal risk because they don't want to necessarily be exposed to potential criminal liability for themselves, trying to produce and maybe successfully producing and then possessing such illegal content. And so the difficulties of safeguarding a model exist even if you're acting in the best of faith, which unfortunately it's not really clear that XAI is doing.
Here in this region, countries like Malaysia and Indonesia have already banned Grok. From a regulatory point of view, what actually works to change behavior? Are fines enough, or does it take outright bans like these to make companies take notice?
I think that threatening to ban and then actually disabling access to a tool in a country with hundreds of millions of people is certainly the nuclear option. And we've seen that kind of threat be carried out before in response to various types of content that particular governments all around the world have decided were harmful, depending on what the particular threat of the moment may have been. We've also seen here and there some efforts to even hold individual executives criminally liable. If you recall, a couple of years ago, Pavel Durov, the head of Telegram, was arrested while he was in France, allegedly also related to child sexual abuse imagery that was appearing on Telegram. And that may also befall executives or individual employees who might work in a particular country, who might end up being held responsible and arrested because of what's happening on the platform.
You know, Riana, I imagine Australia will be breathing a sigh of relief that their under-16s can't access Grok and whatever ills come with it because of its blanket ban on social media. Does this case then strengthen the case for similar blanket bans elsewhere, you feel?
You know, in general, I am very much opposed to blanket bans of teenagers and youths on social media because the harms that can occur with children's images, as we're seeing here, can happen irrespective of whether those children are allowed onto particular online services or not. And, you know, I think it's not just harmful if you know about the imagery being circulated of you. It can also be harmful if you don't know about it, but that other people are viewing it behind your back. Plus, I think that there's something that we should distinguish when we're talking about age verification or age gating particular parts of the internet to youths versus adults, which is that it's not who is making the non-consensual deepfake pornography that matters. It's the fact that it's being made at all, irrespective of whether that is an adult or a child who is making it and who is viewing it.
And Riana, how can these allegations against Grok impact how AI models will be designed going forward?
I think this will be a really big wake-up call for AI companies that this type of risk is something that will result not only in potential exposure legally to regulatory action around the world, but also how terrible this has been for the public optics, the public relations for Grok in particular. People don't necessarily want to align themselves in terms of advertisers, investors, users, businesses with a tool that becomes known as the go-to for making non-consensual intimate imagery. And so it is my hope that whether or not XAI itself ends up cleaning up its act, that other companies will see what is happening and realize that they need to continue and even hopefully enhance the efforts that they're putting in to make their models safe.
Yeah, looks like ramifications are going far and deep. Thank you so much for talking through all of this with us, Riana Pfefferkorn, who's Policy Fellow at the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI.